What would the ocean look like without sharks? It's a question that sounds almost theoretical. Sharks have always been there, somewhere beneath the surface, part of the deep background of marine life. For most people, they exist as a vague idea, a fin, a shadow, a story. But scientists who have studied reefs and coastlines where sharks have disappeared no longer treat the question as theoretical. They have seen the answer. They have watched coral reefs lose their structure. They have watched fish populations collapse. They have watched seagrass meadows vanish, shellfish beds empty, and entire ecosystems shift into something quieter, simpler, and far less alive. The ocean without sharks is not the ocean with one fewer animal. It is a different ocean entirely. This is the story of why, and of the creature that has been holding the sea together for more than 400 million years. To understand the role of sharks, we first have to understand how unusual they are. Sharks belong to a group of fish whose skeletons are made not of bone, but of cartilage. This single difference, hidden inside the body, has shaped everything about them: how they move, how they grow, how they survive. Cartilage is lighter than bone. It is more flexible. It allows the shark's body to bend and turn with a kind of fluid precision that few animals in the ocean can match. Combined with a streamlined shape, powerful muscles, and skin covered in tiny tooth-like structures that reduce drag in the water, sharks are built for something specific. Not aggression, efficiency. A shark does not chase its prey through the ocean in long, exhausting pursuits. It conserves energy. It glides. It waits. It uses senses that humans can barely imagine. Sharks can detect the faintest electrical signals given off by living creatures, picked up through small pores in their snouts called the ampullae of Lorenzini. They can sense vibrations in the water from far away. Their sense of smell is extraordinary, capable of detecting a single drop of blood diluted in vast quantities of seawater. Their eyesight, often underestimated, is finely adapted to low light. A reflective layer behind the retina allows them to see in the dim, blue gloom of deep water with remarkable clarity. Add to this a network of pressure-sensitive cells running along the length of their bodies, known as the lateral line, and what emerges is an animal that perceives the ocean in ways no human ever will. A shark does not simply see or hear its environment. It feels. It reads. It interprets currents, electrical fields, chemical traces, and pressure waves as a single, integrated picture of the world around it. Every part of a shark has been refined by hundreds of millions of years of evolution. There are over 500 known species, ranging in size from the dwarf lantern shark, small enough to fit in the palm of a hand, to the whale shark, the largest fish in the ocean. They live in nearly every marine environment on Earth, from shallow coastal waters to deep abyssal trenches, from polar seas to tropical reefs. Each species occupies a different role. Each contributes to the ocean in a different way. But none of these explains why the ocean needs them. For that, we have to look beyond the individual animal and consider what happens when sharks are present and what happens when they are not. There is a place in the Pacific Ocean where scientists watched in real time what happens to a reef when its sharks disappear. What they found was so unexpected and so consequential that it changed how marine biologists understood ocean ecosystems entirely. We will return to that reef shortly. First, we need to understand a concept that lies at the heart of every functioning ecosystem. It is called balance. In any natural system, life is arranged in layers. At the bottom, plants and algae capture energy from the sun. Above them, small animals feed on those plants. Larger animals feed on the smaller ones. And at the top, a small number of apex predators feed on those in turn. This structure is not just a food chain. It is a system of control. Apex predators do not simply eat. They regulate. By their presence alone, they shape the behavior of everything below them. Prey animals move differently when a predator is near. They feed in different places. They avoid open areas. They do not linger. They do not overgraze. This invisible influence, the simple fact of being watched, keeps entire ecosystems from spiraling out of balance. Ecologists have a name for this. They call it the ecology of fear. It describes a quiet phenomenon in which the mere presence of a predator changes how every other animal in a system behaves. Where it goes, when it feeds, how long it stays in any one place. The predator does not need to act, it only needs to exist. And the consequences of this presence are not subtle. They ripple outward through the entire ecosystem, shaping vegetation, water quality, even the chemistry of the seabed itself. Sharks are the apex predators of the ocean, and their influence reaches far beyond the animals they eat. On a healthy coral reef, sharks patrol the edges. Their presence keeps populations of mid-sized predators in check. These mid-sized predators, in turn, feed on the smaller fish that graze on algae. And those small grazing fish are what keep the coral itself alive. It is a system of quiet dependencies, stacked one upon another. Remove the shark and the entire structure begins to shift. Which brings us back to that Pacific reef. Researchers studying remote atolls in the Central Pacific compared reefs that still had healthy shark populations with reefs where sharks had been removed by fishing. The reefs looked superficially similar from above, but underwater, the differences were enormous. On the reefs without sharks, mid-level predator populations had exploded. Small grazing fish had been pushed into hiding or dramatically reduced. Algae had begun to overtake the coral. The reef itself was being smothered. One missing predator, an entire system unraveling. And the most striking part? These changes happened quickly, within years, not centuries. This pattern has been observed across the world's oceans. Where sharks are healthy, ecosystems are diverse, stable, and resilient. Where sharks have been lost, ecosystems shift, simplify, and weaken. In some regions, the loss of large sharks has allowed populations of rays to grow unchecked. Rays feed on shellfish, including scallops, clams, and oysters. As ray populations expand, shellfish populations collapse. And shellfish, in turn, are part of how the ocean cleans itself, filtering enormous quantities of water every day. In other regions, the loss of sharks has allowed mid-sized fish populations to surge, putting pressure on the smaller species that support the entire base of the food web. Even seagrass meadows, hundreds of kilometers of underwater pasture that store carbon and shelter young fish, depend on the presence of sharks. In areas where tiny sharks patrol, sea turtles and large grazing fish move cautiously, feeding in some areas and avoiding others. This grazing pattern allows the seagrass to recover. Without the sharks, the grazers linger. The meadows are stripped. The carbon stored within them is released. The nurseries collapse. A predator that never touches the grass shapes whether it grows at all. Each of these consequences sounds small in isolation. Together, they describe something much larger, the slow unraveling of systems that took millions of years to assemble. And then there's something else, less visible but just as important. Sharks also remove the weak, the sick, and the injured. By doing so, they prevent disease from spreading through fish populations. They keep gene pools strong. They ensure that the animals that survive are the ones best adapted to their environment. In this way, sharks are not just regulators of numbers. They are regulators of health. And yet, despite their importance, sharks are disappearing from the ocean at a rate that is difficult to comprehend. Some species have declined by more than 70% in the last 50 years. Others have collapsed by over 90%. The reasons are not what most people assume. The greatest threat to sharks is not what they do to us. It is something far quieter and far more devastating. We will come to it shortly. But first, we have to address the story that has shaped how humans see sharks for generations. The story of fear. For much of modern history, sharks have been portrayed as monsters, as mindless killers, as shadows lurking beneath the surface, waiting to strike. This image is powerful. it is also deeply inaccurate. The statistics tell a very different story. In any given year, the number of humans harmed by sharks worldwide is extraordinarily small, typically fewer than 10 fatalities globally. By comparison, far more people are killed each year by cows, by bees, by falling coconuts. Sharks are not interested in humans. We are not part of their natural diet. The rare incidents that do occur are almost always cases of mistaken identity, often in murky water where a swimmer or surfer briefly resembles the shape of a seal or fish from below. To a shark, the ocean is full of familiar shapes, scents, and electrical signals. Humans are an unfamiliar interruption, not a target. In fact, the more closely sharks have been studied, the more nuanced their behavior appears. Researchers using underwater observation have documented sharks showing curiosity rather than aggression, investigating divers slowly, circling at a distance, often turning away once their curiosity has been satisfied. Some species display social behaviors, returning to the same areas year after year, sometimes in the company of the same individuals. These are not the actions of mindless predators. They are the actions of animals with awareness, memory, and discretion. And here's the harder truth. While humans harm fewer than 10 sharks worth of people in a year, humans kill an estimated 70 to 100 million sharks every year. Every year. The relationship is not one of danger from sharks to us. It is the opposite, by an almost incomprehensible margin. If you're finding this perspective on sharks valuable, and if you believe stories like this deserve to be told with care rather than fear, consider subscribing to Beauty of Nature. Every subscriber helps us continue exploring the natural world with the depth and patience it deserves. There's so much more to see beneath the surface. So what is the real threat to sharks? It is not revenge. It is not protection. It is industry. Sharks are killed primarily through commercial fishing, sometimes targeted, often as bycatch in nets meant for other species. In some regions, sharks are hunted specifically for their fins, which are removed and the rest of the animal discarded. In others, they die quietly, unseen, tangled in equipment never meant for them. Sharks are particularly vulnerable to this pressure for a biological reason. They grow slowly. They mature late. They produce few offspring compared to other fish. A species that takes 15 or 20 years to reach reproductive age cannot rebound from population losses the way faster breeding animals can. A single female shark may produce only a handful of young in her lifetime, compared to the millions of eggs released by other fish species. This reproductive strategy works beautifully in a stable ocean. It is catastrophic in an ocean under industrial pressure. Once a shark population collapses, recovery is measured in decades, sometimes centuries, sometimes not at all. This is the quiet emergency unfolding in the world's oceans. Not a dramatic event, not a sudden disaster. A steady, almost invisible removal of the animals that hold marine ecosystems together. And yet, despite everything, sharks continue. In waters that still hold them, they move as they always have. Patient, precise, shaped by time scales that humans can barely measure. Watch a shark in open water, and what you see is not aggression. It is poise. Every movement is economical. Every turn is deliberate. There's no wasted energy, no rushed action. The shark moves through its world with the calm of an animal that has belonged there for hundreds of millions of years. There is a quality to a shark in motion that is difficult to describe. It is not graceful in the way a dolphin is graceful, nor playful in the way a whale can seem playful. It is something older than either. A presence, a sense that the animal is exactly where it belongs, doing exactly what it has always done, in a body shaped so completely for the task that effort itself seemed to have been removed from the equation. It is easy to look at a shark and see only teeth, only menace, only the surface. But what is really there is something far more interesting. An animal that represents one of evolution's longest and most refined experiments. A creature whose form has been tested by every ocean condition the planet has produced. and has emerged from each one, essentially unchanged. Sharks are not the villains of the sea. They are its quiet architects. Understanding sharks is not just a matter of correcting old myths. It is a matter of recognizing what they do every day for the systems that we depend on as well. Healthy oceans produce more than half of the oxygen we breathe. They regulate climate. They feed billions of people. They cycle nutrients across the entire planet. None of this functions without balance. And balance in the ocean depends on its apex predators. Sharks are not separate from the health of the sea. They are the reason the sea is healthy. In a world that often measures importance with visibility, by noise, by size of presence, sharks remind us of something easy to forget, that the most essential work in nature is often the quietest. They do not demand attention. They do not announce their value. They simply continue patrolling reefs and open waters, holding entire systems together by being exactly what they've been for more than 400 million years. To protect sharks is not to protect a single species. It is to protect the structure of the ocean itself. And when we look at them with new eyes, not as monsters, but as regulators, as ancient designers, as the silent stewards of marine life, we begin to see something the ocean has always known. That beauty in nature often takes the shape of what we have most misunderstood. The shark has waited 400 million years for us to see it clearly. It is still waiting. And the ocean, for now, is still listening for the quiet movement of its oldest guardians, moving as they always have, holding the world together, asking nothing in return.